The case has been made that the Bucks are actually trending in the right direction. Camille and I reveal a very interesting survey from ESPN.com coming up next on today's Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. My name is Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day each and every day. Today's episode of Locked On Bucks is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. And it's getting to be that time of year, Camille. We can hear you weekly tonight as we record this, but you'll listen to it same day on the Locked On NBA show, the Technical Foul podcast as well. You can find me on the Bucks Radio Network. Just got some back and forth with the team and some communication earlier today on some things for this season. So that's what I wait for every year to know that the season is back. When I get the email from the team formally saying, hey, you're back, but also here's your reads. Here's some other things we're looking at. What about these things? And that's when it's all right. It is time to probably at this point get a haircut, shave, and get set for the season.
Can't have the podcast look while you're on the radio, huh? You got to get cleaned up when you go into the station.
Well, I mean, radio is one thing, but I got to surround myself with people at the arena that you don't want to be the like, what happened to that guy type of guy.
Growing your hair out. It's a phase. You know, all the nostalgia.
You know what?
Stuff.
Who knows, too? We'll leave a poll question. Should I keep growing it? Maybe. I'm kind of leaning towards that. Speaking of polls, Camille, what a segue that is. It's Tim Bontemps. This isn't the straw poll, but something similar. So he surveyed, how did he parse this here? Front office executives, basically a combination of executives, scouts, coaches as well. It added up to 20 people that he surveyed and asked them a lot of the usuals that you would think, like, hey, who's going to win their conference? Who's going to be the MVP? And you may be saying now, hey, haven't you guys gone over surveys before? We have. This one's a little different, so bear with us, especially as we move closer to the start of the season. But we bring this up because there was a lot of Bucks-centric takeaways in this one. So you and I have obviously looked through these, and if you have not seen it, it was on the front page of ESPN.com, but the NBA offseason survey, best and worst deals, where LeBron ends up, what his future is, finals picks, all of that from Tim Bontemps. So where would you like to start? What was the most logical talking point off of these questions that you would like to dig into?
Ooh, there's a few different ways for me to go. Like there's the Bucks aspects of it, and there's one piece of it that's more like general NBA landscape, and how it applies to the Bucks is something I'm interested to talk about. But let's start with something that we have had a conversation about throughout this offseason a little bit, which is around MVP cases. Who can be the MVP this upcoming season? This was the first question, I believe, in the offseason survey, and your first mention of the Milwaukee Bucks throughout it, because Giannis got one singular vote for that MVP. Anthony Edwards also got one singular vote there. Victor Wembanyama, 2 votes. Luka 4, SGA 5, and Nikola Jokic with 7. Seeing Wemby get more votes than Giannis, having gone like, that's an interesting one, because how well do you think the Spurs will actually be doing this season to buoy an MVP case for Victor Wembanyama? But seeing Giannis there, I think, as I've said before, this could be one of those seasons for Giannis where it's a perfect combination of things to kind of get back into that MVP conversation. But to do that, we've talked about it. The Bucks do need to have, at the very least, a top 4 finish. I think really like that 3 spot probably to help nail that home for him, with everything going well, with ball being in his hands a little bit more. If he can continue at the effective or efficiency levels that he's been playing at over the last 2 seasons, that's in there. If he can set a career high somewhere else, like there's a case in there. If the mid-range game keeps coming for him, there's going to be a case in there because of how he's getting his points on the floor as well. So I think there's going to be a strong MVP case for Giannis, which you could say there's always a strong MVP case for Giannis because he is that talented. But I do think this year with the new look Bucks that there is an avenue forward for that. And to see him get a vote, I was happy to see his name there at least once, but I wish he was at least fourth in that list here.
So Anthony Edwards was an interesting name in this grouping here. He and Giannis, the only two that received just one vote. And Anthony Edwards kind of had that Giannis thing early, the first 7 years of Giannis's career. With Giannis, it was everything. But with Anthony Edwards, it's a handful of stats that just improved year after year after year. Obviously, last year, the biggest piece that he added was the 3-point shooting, both in volume and efficiency. Went from just under 7 attempts per game to more than 10, and jumped from 35% to just under 40% shooting. The big thing for him is scoring went up by about 2 points as well, is where Minnesota is overall. And they finished 6th last year. With how loaded the West is, you're not going to be an MVP conversation. Even though it's a loaded conference and the East is down, you're not going to be in an MVP conversation if your team finishes 6th. It's either you are a supernova statistically or your team is in the hunt for, as you mentioned before, really the top 3. You can start to make exceptions for the top 4. I just have a hard time seeing what the next, not to say there isn't a jump, but how substantive it is for Anthony Edwards to all of a sudden be propelled into MVP front runner in that mix of top 3. Famous last words, I know. I still think it almost feels like it's clearly going to be Luka Doncic or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
You think so? Not even Jokic and Giannis as the top guys.
Giannis, I think, is the dark horse, that it depends on what the Bucks do with their team success. And we're assuming that the Giannis statistics are going to be where, we had the episode a couple of weeks ago where we went through, okay, well, he did this in the playoffs and those types of things. I think he's the dark horse candidate there if the Bucks find that success. But it just, I'm not the guy that jumps to conspiracies. The narrative has already started to be assembled for Luka Doncic. Fit Luka, skinny Luka. He's in shape and he's the new face of the Lakers. It's there. They are telling us we want Luka Doncic to win the MVP. So I think it's going to be him or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander if the Thunder continue to play like they did a season ago. The interesting thing about Jokic is, at some point we're going to hit a Nikola Jokic fatigue like we seemingly did with Giannis. You would think it's coming.
Would have thought it happened. What happened already?
And this is not either of us diminishing what Nikola Jokic has done. He's a fantastic player. He is arguably the best player in the league. But at some point, that backlash and that fatigue is going to come. I found it interesting that one of the unnamed surveyors here, a scout in the West, who cast his vote for Jokic, said he is the best player and his team will be better. I mean, kind of feels like we're moving goalposts because I've seen it with Giannis and other players of like, well, your team is better. Why are you individually the MVP? But I just think it's those two guys that right now, if I had to choose who is going to win the MVP, I would lean towards Luka Doncic and I would have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as my backup. But Giannis is the one to me that has a chance to crash the party more than anyone else.
I find that really interesting. Like Luka's name, not so much because his name's been thrown out preseason predictions for the last, 3 years at the very least of like, it's going to be Luka's year. It's going to be Luka's year where he gets MVP. My thing for him is how good will the Lakers be this upcoming season? If they are not a top 4 in the West, I know the West is going to be a tougher conference too, but like if they have some struggles and I could see some avenues where they could too, still kind of need that big on their team. So depending on how that season shakes out for them, I'll be interested to see how the Luka conversation goes. And if at all he gets dinged for his teammate being, LeBron James. And it's like, who gets the credit? So he might be at a little bit disadvantaged because his teammate is a LeBron, but we'll have to see how it actually shakes out. But as long as you got Giannis the dark horse there, I can get down with that because
Good with
I do
that.
think he'll be in that conversation this year. But I'm really curious as well of what stood out to you in the survey from a Bucks lens.
Well, so from a Bucks lens, quite a bit. There's two other ones I quickly want to touch on that kind of dovetail off of the MVP discussion, and then the Bucks topics that stand out. So we'll start to tackle those coming up next. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all in one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy to use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch's built for people with busy lives. So if you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is here for you. It does all the heavy lifting for you, where you can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. They can help you identify that you're not saving as much as you thought you were. Monarch helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten funds from 401ks you've had from past jobs. They even help you maximize your investments, increasing your savings rate, easily reviewing finances with your partner and or a financial advisor, helping you keep a clear view of your financial health week to week and long term. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. So we'll get to the Bucks specific questions or answers that we received here in just a second, but two that kind of sprouted off of that MVP discussion. When asked who's the best player in the world right now, only two players received a vote. It was basically unanimous. Nikola Jokic got 19 of the 20 votes. Luka Doncic, the only other player to get a vote. So when you see, not even a pity vote for Giannis, did you have any thoughts on that?
Not necessarily. I was just more surprised that SGA actually wasn't in there a little bit more, where I'm like, okay, even with that, like the prior question was who will be MVP, and SGA got 5 votes. Like, but still, not a singular vote for best player right now. That surprised me. I didn't think I would see Giannis's name there, but I know that Giannis is one of the best players in the world, arguably the best player in the world. So that slight didn't really stand out to me as much as not seeing SGA's name at all did.
Yeah, I don't need any validation that Giannis is one of the best players in
We
the
know
world.
that.
And that was, I'm glad you brought that up, because that, I mean, equally slighted. The reigning MVP from a team that won the championship and is in prime position to do it again. Yeah, a little surprising. There's no Shai Gilgeous-Alexander love there. The last one, who will be the best player in 2030? And all snark aside, Camille, I do have one takeaway on this, but Victor Wembanyama got the bulk of the votes. So quick math here. He got 80% of the votes at 16 of them. Luka Doncic received 2. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 1. Jason Tatum got the other vote. No disrespect. If Jason Tatum is the best player in the NBA in 5 years from now, I got a lot of questions. Like, I don't know the direction the league is. Did guys retire? Like, what is going on? Terrific player, best player in the league ceiling. I'm sorry, I don't see it.
Yeah, that's a tough one, and I get it because of the size and the skill set of a Tatum, where it's like you got a 6'9", 6'10" dude who can do a little bit of everything. Like, he doesn't necessarily do anything exceptionally well, but he does a lot of things well enough where you're like, okay, he can shoot, he can play defense, he can read. Like, he does a lot for you. But to your point, yeah, if he's the best player in the league and it's not a Wemby or someone else that's like even Cooper Flag, like even if it's someone else who's just a little bit younger coming into the game here, like I would be like, some of these guys didn't develop in the way that I thought they would at this point.
I mean, honestly, you can make a stronger case for Anthony Edwards than Jason Tatum, you know? So like that was the surprise of it to me. Okay, so here's one Bucks related. Where will LeBron James be at the start of the 26-27? No, I'm kidding. All right, so here's where it started to pique my interest. Which team had the best offseason? And I did want like, do the Bucks even get one vote here that they're just hey, look, I know it's a big pill to swallow with the Dame contract, but you got Miles Turner, you kept everybody else. And so let's see what this is. No, they did not. Los Angeles Clippers got a vote. We'll see where that's at in a couple of months from now. Lakers got one vote. The Magic got two. I'm quite frankly shocked it wasn't more. Thunder got two for basically staying status quo. The Houston Rockets got three. They, of course, the big move, bringing in Kevin Durant and some other nice pickups that they had as well, bringing in more size. We'll get to Denver with 4 votes. Atlanta Hawks with 7 votes got the most. I was surprised this wasn't very Magic and Hawks heavy, I suppose I should say, but seeing, all right, not even a pity vote thrown the way of the Bucks. I scroll down and I see which team had the worst offseason. And I don't know if you had the same thoughts. Your facial
I was like, please don't be in here after not being in another one.
When I saw that, like, oh, come on. Don't say they had the worst. And they didn't, surprisingly. No votes for the Bucks. The New Orleans Pelicans coming at number 1 by a wide margin with some questionable moves on draft night. But this was a mixture of teams. Pelicans, Suns, Kings, Bulls, Lakers, Grizzlies, Sixers, and Blazers.
Lakers made on both lists.
Yeah, 1. So that was the, you know what? I think I can live with no attention at all on these fronts was my takeaway there.
Yeah, I could too, because I had the exact same thought process when scrolling through it of like, are we going to get any votes for best? And I was like, please don't let one be for worst. But you don't see the Bucks again until you get to like the most surprising move of the offseason, which was, of course, Lillard to Milwaukee, waving Dame. That one was number 1 by far, with no surprise.
What was the best move of the offseason? Again, hey, the Bucks swooping in and taking Miles Turner. I knew it wasn't going to be on there because of the attached wave and stretch with Damian Lillard, but Kevin Durant going to the Rockets was the number 1 move. Desmond Bane to the Magic was number 2. The Hawks fleecing the Pelicans on draft night, number 3. And then I scrolled down and I'll be honest, I just saw Miles Turner highlighted and just assumed, what was the worst move in the offseason? They have the Bucks signing Miles Turner. Are you kidding me? But then I had to read it more and see, the Pacers letting Miles Turner walk, receiving a vote as one of the worst in the offseason. And the whole Dame gone, Miles Turner coming to the Bucks was overwhelmingly the most surprising move of the offseason, getting 16 of the 20 votes.
And that was well voted on by this anonymous panel here, because I think that was the singular most surprising moment of the entire offseason. Again, when you're doing something for the first time in NBA history of waiving a contract and stretching a contract of that size, it's going to surprise some people because no one's even thought to do something like that before. Then, of course, we know Bradley Beal gets something similar a little while later after agreeing to a little bit of a buyout there to give some of the money back. But lo and behold, the Bucks do get that vote there for most surprising move. And I agree. I mean, I think about our reactions to it.
Yeah,
just being like, wait, what is happening? Because the Miles Turner news breaks first, and then you're like, well, how'd they do this? And then you see the Dame news, and you're like, wait, what? And then processing it. So I definitely get that being number 1. That would be my vote too.
And that brings us to, I don't know if I'd say Bucks centric, but some very interesting impacts on the Bucks with the rest of this survey. And one very surprising one, the most surprising question of the survey. So we'll reveal that and share some more thoughts on the offseason coming up after this. NFL season is here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You'll love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. Makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. And it's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting fanduel.com to get started. That is fanduel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, here's where business picks up, as Jim Ross would say. The biggest trend of the offseason. And here's what's notable about this one to me. And I think this is the one that, as we were talking, you said stood out to you the most as well, Camille. The notable thing of all of this is every single one of these impacts the Bucks. And we saw the Bucks play in some way, shape, or form. So the number one trend was teams trying to avoid the aprons and obtain financial flexibility. That got 7 of the 20 votes. Number 2 was teams prioritizing size. And you let Brook Lopez walk, you bring in another rim protector. As we mentioned, all the comps of Miles Turner to Brook Lopez. You keep Bobby Portis. You keep Jericho Sims. You have Giannis. You have Kyle Kuzma. You've got a pretty big team in the front court. Teams prioritizing youth and depth. We've talked at length. The Bucks are taking a modern approach now. They're getting younger. And whether or not it's top heavy, it is not up for debate. They are deeper now. Yeah. Free agency continuing to be a non-factor. So I misspoke. 5 of the 6 impacted the Bucks here, but free agency was a non-factor. Restricted free agents getting squeezed helped out the Bucks with Ryan Rollins as a restricted free agent and teams not having cap space to go after some of those targets. We're seeing it continue to drag into the offseason as well. You saw it with a handful of guys, most notably Jonathan Kuminga, and then waiving and stretching contracts. So the free agency non-factor, restricted free agents getting squeezed, and waiving and stretching contracts each got 1 vote. Prioritizing youth and depth got 4. Prioritizing size got 6. And then we mentioned the financial flexibility with 7. So all told, 5 of those 6 were, I don't know if John Horst would say were prominently on their mind, but you can all see how those tie into some of the Bucks' decision-making this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The point about prioritizing size was one that stood out to me because for so long in the NBA, you've heard small ball, small ball, small ball. Like that's been something that the Warriors in the mid 2015s here was trying to really, like, everybody wanted that death lineup for themselves because the Warriors did it. They were successful with it. How can we do that? Can we find our Draymond? Can we move in this direction? Which was, again, part of the conversation and the allure of what could some of these Giannis at 5 lineups look like? And it's not to say that those lineups have no place anymore, because there are going to be times when going small makes sense. You want the speed, so on and so forth. But size, teams going back to, like, we want to play double bigs. Like Houston ran out the double bigs with Steven Adams out there next to Sengun or Smith. You have it right here in our own conference.
Clint Capella's back too.
Clint Capella's over there too now, so they can really keep those double big lineups in Cleveland. The Allen and Mobley, like we've seen the double bigs there as well, even in Denver. Well, I would say that's more of a backup situation. Then we'll see them on the court together, Jonas and Jokic. But teams are like looking for that size and thinking about that when Doc came to the team, made mention of the fact, like, okay, at this point, we're kind of old. We ain't going to get no track meets with people, but we have size. We can lean into that. And this is a Bucks team that, while I do think that they still need a little bit more size on the wing, playable size on the wing, I'll say, they can do some interesting lineups there with the front court that they have. And if any lineups they want to try to throw out there where you do run, in theory, 3 bigs because you have a Giannis, can you do a Giannis, Bobby Porter, Miles Turner lineup, or Kuz out there in one of those? Like, they can get big too. And that was something interesting to think about for this Bucks team.
You mentioned Denver, kind of like an indentured servant that they have there with Jonas Valanciunas as the backup to Nikola Jokic. But yeah, and it's not just this offseason either, but it's kind of been this slow build that we've started to hear, like, well, hold on. Are bigs an important piece to the game again? Like, are we starting to see a movement here with bigs for the last 3 or so years, it feels like.
Mhm.
And it brings us to, I think, the most interesting and final question in this survey. Who will win each conference in the NBA title? So I'll just spoil the last part. Only 2 teams receive votes at winning the title, the Nuggets and the Thunder. And the Thunder got 18 of the 20 votes. I'm not a bold proclamations type of guy, Camille, but I feel pretty strongly about this.
Oh, let's hear it.
An Eastern Conference team is going to win the title this year.
Oh, you
Because,
think so?
yes, everything is
champs coming out
stacked
the East.
to the West is loaded, and that, wow, the East, has it ever been this down? When's the last time? Yada, yada, yada. Seems ripe for an Eastern Conference team is going to win a title. And not to mention, like, I think there's a lot of validity to that. And that also means the Eastern Conference winner is going to have an easier path to the championship.
yeah.
So, yeah, I feel pretty strongly that an Eastern Conference team is going to end up winning the championship this upcoming season. Now, which team will that be? There were 5 teams that received votes for who is going to win the East this season. You can guess the 2 main ones. The Cavs and Knicks got 16 of the 20 votes, led by Cleveland with 9. The Hawks got 2. And then you had the Orlando Magic and your Milwaukee Bucks each getting a vote. And we saw a similar survey, about a month ago, where there was the same thing. I forget how it was exactly worded, but it was basically, well, if it's, a surprise team, it's going to be the Bucks. That there's this belief in what they did of, I think they're going to finish in the middle of the pack, but you could really talk me into the Bucks coming out of the Eastern Conference. So I'm assuming of everything in this survey, even though it's only 5% of vote, this is the thing that jumped out the most to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's 5 teams in the East that people think have a chance to win the conference, and only 2 teams listed in the West here. Like, we've talked about the East being open. That's been the conversation around the conference since the finals, like since the playoffs really were going on, and you saw the injuries starting to affect some of those teams that you really count on to be contenders, with the Pacers in the finals, and then the Celtics against the Knicks there, where you lose Tatum. So it's one of those things for me. When I saw the Bucks get their singular vote, I was like, someone else sees it. There's a pathway here for it. I'm seeing your face here, the frown.
No, I agree. Wouldn't it be something too if it wasn't the same guy or girl
Who voted for
it is voting
different
on it
Bucks stuff?
too?
Yeah.
Somebody picked Giannis to win the MVP, and a totally different person said the Bucks are going to win the East.
Could definitely be, but like it goes to show, like, anything can happen. I thought maybe the Hawks and Magic might take a little bit of that share of, like, we know the Celtic or the Cavs and the Knicks are seen as the favorites here, but the Hawks have been a really trendy, like,
Yes.
off-season pick. So have the Magic with the move for Desmond Bane. So I would have honestly maybe been like, maybe they get 3, a piece or something like that, and that splits even more. But the Bucks do have a shot again. Giannis is the best player in the conference. The depth on this team, while the names might not be mainstream, is better than what they've had in years past. They are younger. But again, you have guys who you're counting on to hit certain ceilings. So there's some question marks around it, which, again, I understand it. But I was just happy to see the Bucks get at least a singular vote of, like, I could see a pathway forward for them.
Well, the context around this is key too, because when asked about the responses they gave, it was basically a lack of belief in those teams, in everyone else lumped in there in front of the Bucks and around the Bucks. As one executive said, I think, the guys in Orlando fit together really well. And I don't have as much faith as everyone else does in Cleveland and New York. Same story for the Hawks, that they have a lot of what ifs, but it's a really good core. And Trae Young is really good. And compared to his peers, he's had real playoff success that he doesn't get credit for. But the one that we'll cling to the most, it was a Western Conference assistant that cast the vote for the Bucks, said, look, it's just simple. I'm betting on Giannis and against the rest of the Eastern Conference. So it really just, hey, optimize this during the regular season, stay healthy, find the fit, find what works, lean into that small sample size that John Horst believes in, and get a seat at the table is the big story here.
Yeah, and find what lineups work for you this upcoming season. Like, use the regular season for some of that experimentation as well of like, let's see if this works. Like we mentioned, do we see some of those jumbo lineups? Like, they might not work, but let's get a look at them. Let's get some data on them. So come playoff time, if you make it there, the hope is that you make it there. You have some different ideas of how you can approach the game based on what your opponent wants to do. So that's why like this season is offering some interesting combinations and things to think about, because we've said it too, like Jericho Sims is a name that we just haven't talked about a lot this offseason once Miles Turner was a Milwaukee Buck. But like, what does that look like? What can you do with certain lineups if situation calls for it? And of course, we still have some roster uncertainty here with there being 17 guys right now under contract, 2 of those non-guaranteed at the moment, as we know. But again, this is one of those seasons for the Bucks where it can go a lot of different ways. And I think having less expectations going into the season, plus seeing something different for this team for the first time in like this Giannis championship MVP window of his play, it's going to be must-see TV.
And I think the last part is the most important part. That, and I realize I said I do firmly believe an Eastern Conference team is going to win the NBA championship, but there is just not a whole lot of belief in the teams that are at the top. Like, this isn't even the dominant Celtics, and then who's even going to challenge Boston? This is literally wide open for everyone. I don't want to take up too much time on it because we're not locked on Cavs, but we've talked about it before too. And just this is the last dance for this version of Cleveland. And I frankly wonder if that's the case in New York too, because Cleveland specifically, exiting the semifinals last year, you heard a lot of, well, yeah, buts and the injuries. And Fallett, you had some crucial guys missing chunks of that series. But we said the same things in Milwaukee. And I mean, number one, it wasn't readily accepted when the Bucks said it, but also we said that. And you're still waiting to get out of the first round, that at some point it just kind of becomes, well, this is just what happens with us. So it is very, very crucial for Cleveland that I would go as far as saying the Cavaliers have the most pressure on them as anyone in the league this season, because it is a wide open Eastern Conference and you are the perceived best team. You won 60 plus games last year and pointed to the injuries. So, okay, we need to see it now. Otherwise, it's going to be time for some wholesale changes in the offseason. And I think you can start to make that case in New York too, with some of the contracts that they have. And if this doesn't work out, you beat the Celtics last year. You couldn't get past the Pacers. This year, everything was open for you. Brought in some more names too. Gerson Yabusele and Jordan Clarkson. There's pressure on that team, and there's just not the belief. So it almost seems like everyone surveyed here is just saying, look, just give me a different team to believe in, because you're never going to sell me on the Cavs and Knicks.
You know, that one is that's an interesting cross. We got to get our Locked On Cavs crossover soon, I think, because I think the conversation around that team and its place in the East is really interesting, because they're just a presumed favorite, even though they have flamed out in the playoffs the last 2 years. So it's one of those questions about how much do you believe in them being able to reload, retool this year? Like, how much of an impact is Lonzo Ball going to have on that team, especially with Garland missing the first however long of the season that he missed while he continues to recover from this toe injury. So there's questions there. And as we wrap, one last thing I'll say, a little surprised there was no Detroit Pistons mentions at all. Like, not even one vote somewhere in there for something for Detroit.
What, the weirdest offseason? Detroit ready to offer Malik Beasley the full mid-level and then learning on the eve of free agency. Yeah. Oh, I don't think we can do that. Yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments here. Takeaways from the survey. Did Giannis and the Bucks get enough, a proper amount of credit? Not enough? Were they overlooked? Did they get too much, in the belief that at least one person out of the 20 thinks they can and will win the Eastern Conference? And more importantly, Camille, I mean, should I let it keep going?
Yeah.
Or
We
should
need
I
the
cut
poll
the
on
hair?
Justin's hair. Should he cut the
Yeah,
hair or keep it growing?
Leave your thoughts on that as well. We got more statistical breakdowns to dig into here in the coming days. We mentioned Media Day is next Monday. That I think how we handled it last year, we'll probably do the same again and have basically an afternoon show where we recap Media Day and everything that we learned there. And then before you know it, the preseason is here.
Mhm.
I should know this, but what, October 4th is it? I think the first Monday in October. The
Yeah.
Bucks are in Miami to play the Heat without Tyler Hero. So it's here, the season that is. And we'll get Frank back on the show in the coming days as well to get his thoughts on everything that's developed since the last time we caught up with Frank. That will do it for today's show. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.